Welcome back to Performance Process. My name is Ronan Mc Laughlin. I am a senior tech editor here at escapecollective.com, and as always, I'll be your host for this episode. I'm going to kick off this show with a question for you, the listener here, the audience, and that is, how much do you actually think about your warm-up? Is it just a quick spin before the start, something you copied from a teammate or found online, or the same routine you've been doing for years? Do you even know where your warm-up routine came from? Maybe it's a protocol a coach gave you, but have you ever questioned if it is right for you? Is it really improving your performance, or could it actually be costing you performance? Those are some of the questions we are asking in this episode. We'll also break down the real purpose of a warm-up, why it should be called an activation rather than a warm-up, how long it should be, how hard it should be, how easy it should be. Crucially, we'll answer when to stop with your warm-up and how to keep the benefits from fading before your race starts. Most importantly, we'll break down how to personalize your warm-up that works best for you, not just follow what everyone else is doing. And to discuss all that, our guest today is Chris Blomfield-Brown. He has decades of experience in high performance, first as a race engineer in motorsport, then as performance and technology lead at Core, the body temperature sensor device company. And throughout that, he has spent years helping athletes move beyond generic warm-ups to personalized activation protocols that prime the body to perform. He now works with Ultra Cool Tech, who we've covered here on Escape Collective. They produce the cooling towels, and as I've just heard, cooling hats to help us keep our body temperatures down. Chris, welcome to the show. We've been discussing this episode for probably about a year or so, I think. Long story short, what we're about to discuss, well, you've helped me help another rider add 35 watts to their performance at the National Time Trial Champs just by altering their warm-up. So I'm pretty excited for this show. Good to have you back on.
No, thanks, Varun, and always a pleasure to talk to you. It's always fun. And hopefully we can educate some of your listeners and get them thinking about things that, as you said, we've been talking about this for a year, but no one really thinks about doing the warm-up too much. And it's still an important thing not to forget about. So, and not to neglect too much, like we've been doing for the last year.
Yeah, well, we haven't neglected it. I think it's one of those that, yeah, as you said, we maybe don't ask these questions as much as we should have. But once you start having the conversations, once you start asking these questions, once you start thinking about it, it is a pretty obvious area of opportunity in terms of improving our warm-ups. And some of the things that you have said to me over the past year or so have just been so it seemed like so obvious, but also just stuff that we've been doing for years. And maybe, that's what we're about to get into, but maybe doing wrong in terms of looking back now, certainly the time trials warm-ups that I used to do were probably too intense. The warm-up this rider that I was working with in the National Championships was doing it wasn't working great for him when we can add 35 watts onto his performance. We're not talking about 35 watts saving here. We're talking about 35 watts in terms of his power meter beforehand said 390. His power meter after we changed the warm-up said 420, 430 or whatever it was. Real gains, not savings. Chris, just before we get into that, we're gonna switch the show up a little bit here today because I'm actually going to let you be the host for this opening segment of the podcast. Okay. So hosting duties are over to you. I know you've got a few questions from me that might help us break this down a bit quicker.
Oh, okay. Just for fun, and I'm not after your job. Trust me. You do a good job at this as hosting. So, okay, no, let's just start another way. So when we were personalizing warm-ups and when we started looking at this was 12 years ago, I think we started looking at this. And I can talk a little bit later how we get into it. But let me just start. So for yourself or the athlete you were looking after nationals, do you guys have a warm-up program that you follow?
I think for myself personally, I've dabbled with different warm-ups that I've probably a combination of things that seemed like they made sense, things that I heard somewhere, things that I read somewhere. With varying degrees of success. Sometimes, starting a time trial and very quickly realizing, God, I feel pretty dead today. And, with the benefit of hindsight now, starting maybe asking, well, I wonder if that was actually a bad day or was that due to the warm-up I'd done. And for the athlete that we were working with, his warm-up protocol which I know is the same for a lot of other writers around the world, came from something that Team Sky published maybe 10 years ago or something. And he's been doing the Team Sky protocol for a decade or so.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent point. That's what I was going to kind of lead into is where did you get this warm-up protocol? So, I mean, usually you're doing your warm-up protocol for an important event, right? Like a national time trial or an important race or a crit race, and you want to start out prime. And then the question is where did you get this time? Where did you get this warm-up protocol that you're following?
Well, yeah, for me, a combination of everything, and for the solo writer, Team Sky. And he was never on Team Sky, so.
And how often did you do it? Did you just do it before the important events, or were you doing it regularly?
Just before time trials, probably.
Okay.
Maybe the odd time before a road race when, talking about a long time ago now, but trying to think back, probably would have dialed back the intensity a slight bit before.
Yeah.
I seem to remember maybe dialing the intensity back for a road race warm-up.
So, well, I just want to, like, let's just say it's this national time trial. So the national time trial, say it was one of your goal events. So you've been training all year, you've really specialized your training, you've ridden the course, you've got your nutrition plan, you've done all this prep, you've aero fix on your bike, you spent time on the velodrome optimizing everything, right? And so what do you do, 45 minutes before you start time, what do you do? Most people are doing something they've never done or they do a few times a year. You're doing something completely different 45 minutes before you start.
What's that old saying? Don't do anything new on race day. And we usually think about food and stuff, but yeah.
And what exactly you're doing, and this is what primes you for that event. And a lot of us do this, it's just sort of like, oh, this is my special event. I had a lot of people, I asked this question to a lot of people, and they would say, oh, no, but for my special event, I pull out a special warm-up that I only do for my special events. So I only do it once a year.
Like I said, yeah, some of the stuff you're going to say just sounds so obvious when you say it, but actually, even if it's not a special 1 day a year warm-up, if you only do your warm-up ahead of the 6 or 7 time trials you do in a year, I mean, that's as good as being something new on race day because you're not doing it in training. You're doing it on race day, so it's new.
That's a perfect way. I'll go back to host or I'll go back to the guest. And then I'll just give you a little bit background on how we kind of got onto this topic. Is a few years ago, we were playing around with a lot of biosensors, and we were using the Moxie sensor that was existing then, and it was BSX then. This is a muscle oxygen sensor, so we can actually see the oxygen levels inside the muscles. And so we started testing, working with a few sports scientists in Australia. We were testing a lot of different athletes. And after testing, I don't know, it was close to 100 athletes, we were asking these same exact questions. And a lot of people are like, where you got your warm-up program? And say, I don't know, my coach gave it to me when I was 15. Or I got it from Team Sky, or, I read on the internet, or I don't even, I just do what it feels right. And there was nothing there. So, and all this, we learned out of testing all these people and looking at these different things, we learned 4 main things about the warm-up. And the first one is most warm-up programs aren't very effective and often can be counterproductive. We also learned, as we know in a lot of different training, everyone's different. So what works for Ronan and works for me or an age grouper isn't always the same. So it's individualized. And the third thing we learned is practicing a warm-up doesn't make a little bit of difference. It makes a huge difference, just like training. And then we can talk about these things. And then we also saw how long a warm-up lasts. And so that was really effective.
You said there that the first thing you mentioned was that quite a lot of warm-ups can be counterproductive. Do you want to delve into that first? Maybe just explain what you were identifying there.
Yeah, it's just basically too hard. It's basically you're wearing yourself out before I mean, you could even measure some people's lactate levels. They'll be high. So, I mean, not high, but they'll already start building up lactate in their blood system, which is why you don't want to start an event like that. You want to end that way, not start that way. And then also warming up, you get too hot, your core body temperature is getting too hot, too high, which can also be counterproductive. So going too hard, doing too much can be counterproductive. And then we should probably go look at the basics: is what do you really want in a warm up? And then most of the sports scientists, the first thing they're going to say is don't use the word warm up. It's completely, it's not really descriptive of what we're trying to do.
Yeah,
you're not really warming
You've
up
used
the muscles.
The word activation and priming a couple of times since we hit record here 10 minutes ago. That's intentional, I'm thinking.
A lot of the trend when we were doing this is a lot of the coaches and sports scientists were saying we activate before. We're not doing warm up. They didn't like the term, but it's just such a common term. That's why everyone uses it. It's not really warming up the muscles. That's how it used to be described. All we're trying to do is get some neuromuscular coordination kind of happening. Everything's starting, all the processes starting to happen. And the big one is vascular dilation. So that's when the delivery system dilates in your muscles, so you can deliver in the working muscles, so more blood can be delivered quicker. And that's pretty much it. It doesn't need a whole lot of happening. You just want everything all working properly, and you want the vascular system kind of primed and ready to go, or activated if you want to do it.
One of the things you mentioned there about being counterproductive is going too hard. And one of the few bits of advice or theory or whatever I've had given to me about warm-ups in the past was the longer the time trial, the easier the warm-up should be, and the shorter the time trial, the harder it should be. And the same would apply for the start of a road race or even a training session. It's like if you're going to do something really, really intense, you need to really warm up the system, was the thinking, and so you needed to do more intensity in your warm-up. Does that, when you're saying too hard, can you give us a guide on what you mean there, and does it apply equally to all types of events that you're warming up or activating for?
What we found is really some of the trackies might do something a little bit different because they're, in a super sprint event, still pretty much the same, but they might do a couple of things different, but slightly. But really, it's all the same. All we're trying to do is get everything primed. And that vascular dilation is one of the biggest things that we can do, because it takes a while for your body to vascular dilate, open up the blood flow system to be able to get the oxygen and everything that those muscles need to be able to perform at that high level. So if you go too hard, too quick, the warm-up should just be aerobic. So there's no reason to be really anaerobic in your warm-up session. So we just keep it aerobic and keeps it nice and easy. And most of us know what happens if we do a warm-up wrong. As you said earlier, you feel flat, or the first 15 minutes in the crit race, you're hanging on by your teeth. In a road race, just depending on the event or time trial, it just doesn't feel right from out of the gate. Going too hard and doing too much, sometimes you're probably better off not doing anything. But the biggest error is most people go too hard. It's not necessary. Most of the research and everyone we were working with and all the results we found were, there's a few different things to do, but too hard doesn't help. And too long doesn't really help. Getting too hot definitely doesn't help. So it's probably simpler than most people think.
Yeah. Can you maybe break down for us what is vascular dilation and why is that important here?
That's vascular dilation is really simple. It's just the blood vessels dilating, so more blood can
getting
flow.
Wider.
Our system works on contracting and constricting those blood vessels, and so we just want to dilate all those blood vessels in the working muscles, so blood flow goes there. And a lot of times, it contracts in other places. It really kind of, the body's redirecting blood flow to those working muscles. But it takes a little bit to tell your body to open up those blood vessels and start letting the oxygen in. And like if you're using a muscle oxygen sensor, an SMO2, you can actually see it happen. You can see dilation when it's happened. It's really, you don't have to guess. You just see it happening. And you can really change. Before your event, you can change the oxygen levels in your muscles. We used to call it hyperventilating your muscles. So we used to kind of prime them, and you can see the oxygen levels. Everything starts high when you start that event. And when a warm-up's done right, usually most people don't notice it. It just felt like you start the event and you just felt good. And if it's done right, you don't notice it. If it's done wrong, that's when you know. You only notice it when you haven't done it right. Uh, or that's when
But
you
is
really
it like
notice it.
on the four things that you said you identified? The second one was it needs to be individualized or personalized to the individual athlete. Is
Yeah.
that vascular dilation part that what will trigger that for one athlete might differ from another? Is that why it needs to be individualized?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. And even as you get fitter, that can get harder to happen because your body just gets quite good at it. And that's why we found practicing it makes almost the biggest difference. So your body's getting used to that.
So how, if someone listening to this podcast now, how do they know whether they're vascularly dilating correctly or not, or enough, or too much, or going too hard or going too easy?
Well, let's break. Okay, so let's break down a warm
Yeah.
up. Maybe that's an easy way to start. So, what was one of your warm ups you're doing, or your friend was doing for the nationals? Just briefly.
If I remember correctly, he was doing like a 5 minute. He had all different cadence targets that he wanted throughout, also varying from like 85 to 110 RPM. But long story short,
Yep.
it was a easy 5 minutes, and then I think 3 sets of 2 minute ramps. So he might have been starting at 240 and then 280 and then
Okay.
340 and 400 and finishing with I think 30 seconds at like 440 and then taking it back 2 minutes easy and then repeat that. So something I
Okay.
don't remember exactly, but
So he was going above
he
threshold in
definitely
there.
was.
Yeah, but he was going
Yeah.
above thresholds. Okay. Okay. So I mean that what you describe is it doesn't sound uncommon. Everyone starts with an easy part.
Hmm.
Um, and actually, maybe we should start even better, like how you really do a warm up. So on a time trial, it's really clear. Or if you have a race start event, usually work backwards, right? That's what I mean. Maybe that's the part where you need to remind people. So if you're going to do a half-hour warm up, and let's say your start time it is at 11:30, and you're doing a half-hour warm up, and then you have a 10 minute after your warm up to the start. So you're going to start at
Hmm.
10:50
Hmm.
for an 11:30 start, right? So that's the important part. So we always work backwards, so we know
Hmm.
when to start a warm up, and then usually everyone has builds in a buffer to get from the warm up, get your bike off the trainer or whatever you're doing to get to the start line. So that's the main point. Always work backwards from your start time, and it doesn't matter if it's a race start, a crit start, or whatever. And then in that warm up program, almost everyone starts with a little bit easy. That's the way we even train when we're on the road. We start into nice, easy roll, and then we get into our efforts. It's pretty common. So that easy part is usually the part that we do where we start to see a little bit of vascular dilation happening. And that's that we're starting to do that. Maybe we start sweating a small amount. And then what happens is the muscles see that they need more blood flow. The heart rate starts coming up a little bit, and the blood vessels start to dilate. Now that takes different times for different people. And one of the biggest areas we saw is most people don't do the easy part long enough, and they do the intensity too early. So if you're going to skimp on anything, skimp on the intensity and do the easy part. So do the easy part. That's almost the most important part. Um, and then usually in that easy part, I mean, it really helps if you have a muscle oxygen sensor. And if you don't, just do the easy part longer. I would just say just do it longer. And sometimes it can be low wattage. Some people, I used to like to do low wattage and build up and kind of do high cadence, but really low watts. That would trigger the demand for blood flow quite, quite easy. Generally, you want at least cadence that you're going to be racing at. So if you're spin at 90, at least warm up there, if not higher, to get all that neuromuscular coordination happening. And then if you can do anything, I would say do that easy part at least 10 minutes, maybe even 15 minutes. That's the important part. And then, you're just sweating a little bit. And then after that, then you can go into different kinds of intervals. Um, Okay. And then when you do those intervals, let's say you're doing 3 minutes at threshold. Usually what we want to do is try to keep them aerobic. And that means is you want to ramp, because there's no real benefit to being, full anaerobic. So it always takes a while for your heart rate to ramp up when you're doing efforts. So if you can kind of match your heart rate and the power going up at the same time, it's keeping it mostly aerobic. So you take like 45 seconds to ramp up into that power, or a minute. So you kind of, or what your friend was doing, stepping up every few seconds to step up. That's actually a really good strategy. And then how long you want to do that. Then we get into the trick, which a lot of people don't do, because usually after your interval, everyone takes a break.
This was one thing that you changed for us. That was, this was huge. So maybe just break down what the trick is. Okay, folks, that's where we're cutting off the free version of this podcast this week. Just a reminder, if you head over to escapecollective.com/member, you can sign up now and you can get the entire podcast uninterrupted. You'll not have me butting in to cut you off or to remind you that you're not yet a member. And in doing so, you will be helping to ensure this podcast continues for many more episodes and months and years to come. So head over escapecollective.com/member now to sign up to Escape Collective and to get the entire episode of Performance Process, along with all of the other podcasts and written content that we publish on our website.